What is good, YouTube? This is Deeker Jones here, and today I wanted to jump into a video series where I'm going to be talking about the most overpowered weapons that you can get in the game. To kick this series off, I would like to start with quite possibly one of my favorite weapons of all time, the Explosive Combat Shotgun. The explosives prefix, which can be found on any legendary weapon, adds a 15 damage explosion to the rounds that are fired from the gun. But what makes the explosive combat shotgun so utterly effective is the fact that each pellet that is fired by the shotgun is affected by that legendary prefix. So you get a whole bunch of little mini 15 damage explosions every time you pull the trigger. The closer you are to the target, the more of those pellets will connect, and it will rack up damage really quick. The Demolitions Expert perk will affect the explosives portion of the damage, so once you have that at rank 5, each one of those little explosions will actually be doing 30 points of damage, which is even more devastating. 30 points of damage may not sound like a whole lot on the surface of things, but when you couple the high rate of fire that a combat shotgun has with the large magazine capacity on it, and the fact that it cripples and destroys most enemies' limbs no matter where you shoot them at, as long as you can get some of them to connect, they're probably going to have their arms and legs blown off. This will oftentimes leave enemies completely defenseless because they have no limbs left with which to fight back. That in and of itself makes this weapon an extremely defensive choice. It also has a chance to stagger your enemy with each explosion. So all of this put together means that every enemy that you shoot with this weapon is going to be staggered, crippled, limbless, and taking heaps and heaps of damage. And as if all of this wasn't enough, it's also fantastic whenever enemies are being stubborn and hiding in cover. You don't have to hit the enemies with it specifically to wreck their day. If they're tucked away in a corner somewhere, you can just shoot the wall behind them, shoot the floor at their feet. You can even clear them out of a nest from long range by just pelting the entire area that they're in. Now, do keep in mind that there is a significant drawback to this weapon, and that is that the explosive splash damage can and will injure you as well. The only remedy for this problem is to put the dense modification on your chest piece, which will significantly reduce the amount of damage that you take from explosions, and that's highly recommended if you intend to use this weapon. This drawback is extremely problematic when fighting any enemy that can close the gap between you in a short amount of time, such as Yaogwai, attack dogs, ghouls, and death claws. So if you decide to forego putting the dense modification on your chest piece, either be prepared to die whenever you encounter enemies like this and they manage to get close to you, or be very, very selective in the targets that you choose to use this on. Now that we've covered the mechanics of how the explosive prefix works and how it interacts with the combat shotgun, let's shift gears and talk about the perk selection as well as the modifications. Now, when it comes to selecting the modifications to use on this weapon, there's only a few things that are really a choice. That's going to be whether or not you want to use a semi-automatic receiver or an automatic receiver, which of course will ultimately determine which perk you take later on to scale the damage, as well as whether or not you want to use a scope or you want to use a reflex sight. I would personally suggest the reflex sight because it gives you more action points to use in VATS, and a scope isn't that effective on this weapon anyways because it doesn't have a very good range on it. So my personal suggestion, get that reflex sight. As far as which receiver you want to choose, that's really going to be a matter of personal taste. I myself prefer the semi-automatic. The rate of fire on the combat shotgun is already significant enough, and I prefer the extra per shot damage and the extra fine control that you get from not using the automatic receiver. As well as because my build is already focused around the rifleman perk, which means I'm already scaling that damage anyways. I would have to get additional points in commando if I wanted to use the automatic receiver on this weapon alone. As far as the rest of the modifications on this weapon goes, you're just going to want to get the best option that is available for your current rank of gun nut. Gun nut rank 3 will get you everything but the most powerful receiver, which is an automatic receiver. So if you're going semi-automatic, you don't have to get above gun nut rank 3. If you want to get a recon scope on it, you will also have to get 1 rank of science in order to make that happen. Aside from that, the modification selection is pretty straightforward for this weapon. Now, your perk selection is also very straightforward. Your typical perks for scaling damage are going to apply to this weapon that uses a stock. So Rifleman, if you're going semi-automatic, or Commando, if you're going fully automatic, is going to be your primary source of damage scaling for this. The other obvious choices are going to be Bloody Mess, Lady Killer / Black Widow, Lone Wanderer if you're going by yourself. And as far as the explosive portion of the damage on this weapon, that can be scaled by the Demolitions Expert, as I mentioned previously in the video. Some secondary perk selections to take into consideration would be things like Ninja and Mr. Sandman, which will help augment your sneak attack damage with this weapon, which is going to absolutely crush anything that you put it to. Quick Hands will really help with the reload speed on this, as well as the large magazine drum that comes on it as a modification. And a few other things like Sniper rank 2 can actually knock down enemies if you put a scope on this weapon, because it is technically a rifle. If it has a scope, the Sniper perk will affect it as well. Now, I'm not sure if the reflex sight technically counts as a scope or not. Usually enemies don't last long enough, and they'll get knocked down anyways once their legs have been blown off. So, you don't have to take Sniper perk for this weapon. Just know that it can affect it if you modify it correctly. And that's going to wrap things up for this video today. I'll be leaving an annotation on screen as well as a link in the description to a video of mine that I did that's going to show you how to farm for specific legendary items. That way you don't have to just wander around the wastelands aimlessly hoping to come across a fantastic weapon such as this one here. There is going to be a patch coming in a few weeks probably that may or may not change that farming method, so you might want to get on that as soon as possible if it's your intent to farm this weapon in that manner. Other than that, if you found this video useful, I would really appreciate it if you'd maybe share it with a friend of yours. Give it a like and maybe subscribe to my channel for future Fallout 4 content and additional gaming content to come. So stay tuned. And as usual, I hope you have a very nice day.